Black Entrepreneurs Group. Lovely.
What's going on, everybody? Hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel by now, you need to subscribe to the channel. Today, we're going to really dive into relationships and marriages. We're going to dive into the similarities and a little bit of some differences, but more so of the similarities of what it is to really be in a relationship, what it is really to have a bond or a connection, what it is to really have that friendship, and what it is to really be in in a marriage. Let me first and foremost go ahead and say this. For purposes of this video, I will be using myself in a lot of examples. So if it's somebody out there that feels like, you're going through whatever you're going through, you can use me as the relatable piece, and that's fine. I have no intentions on hurting anybody's feelings. This is directly for me, by me. It's definitely something that I want to take the time out to really address before I dive into what I'm about to say. So now that I got that out of the way, relationships and marriages. Let's talk. Okay, so what I find is a lot of people say they want relationships, or they say they want to be involved with somebody. They want to have a relationship with this person, mainly because of the status, or mainly because they feel a certain type of way or vibe, or however you want to describe it. They feel like, this person is the person that they want to be with. And it's the exact same with marriages. We tend to separate the two a lot, in a sense, and we feel as though they don't have a direct connection or a direct representation of the same thing. You should actually be dating to marry, and that's why a lot of the relationships fail, because you put a lot of emphasis on dating. You spend a lot of time going on dates, whether it's the movies or out to eat, and you really don't work on the things that I'm getting ready to tell you that you should work on. And it's the same way in a marriage. A lot of times, people that get married early on, they face life experiences and they forget how to date. Um, what I think, goes into a relationship a lot of times are attributes that we as people can control and some we can't. I feel like you should really take the time out to not only get to know a person, but get to know more about a sense of hope within itself. And what I mean by that is, we tend to date each other. We tend to spend a lot of time focusing on each other instead of focusing on the relationship, the friendship, the bond, the marriage. We literally will lose ourselves following behind ungrateful people. We put a lot of emphasis on our significant others, and when they make mistakes, we tend to not forgive and forget. But we as people are going to make mistakes, whether it is one time or it's 50 times. A mistake is a mistake is a mistake. We hold ourselves on a higher plateau by saying things like, hey, if this person cheat on me, then, and it's a multiple times, I'm not gonna forgive that. I'm not gonna let that go. He really don't love me. She really don't love me. So I'm just gonna let the relationship go. I've said it time and time again. We are living in a time to where, as people, we are soft. We don't want to work towards anything. We don't want to fight towards something or someone that we love. We rather just give it up. We rather be in a position to where we leave the person that we say we love because things don't go the way that we intend them to go. And a lot of times we give the devil too much credit. We would say things like, oh, well, he's out here doing this thing, or he doing this, I'm going to do me. And you forget what it is to really love somebody, being in a open, honest, and transparent place to where you really have to take the time out to ask yourself, if you really love someone, are you willing to go through the hell and the high water to make the relationship work, make the marriage work, make the bond work, make the friendship work? A lot of things start as friendship and we overstep our boundaries. We tend to find ourselves in position to where we got to have that person here. We gotta be connected to somebody instead of the relationship aspect, instead of the bond, instead of the marriage, instead of the friendship. We find ourselves trying to make our significant other happy instead of doing these things that you're doing in your friendships, in your bonds, in your relationships, and in your marriage. You should focus on the marriage itself, or focus on the friendship itself, focus on the relationship itself, focus on the bond itself. Make your bond better. Make time for your bond, make time for your relationship, make time for your friendship, make time for your marriage. A lot of times we don't do that. We sacrifice a lot for other people and not the actual situation. We fall in love with the people. We fall in love with the people. We find ourselves loving one another, but not the relationship, not the marriage, not the bond, not the friendship. We find ourselves trapped and caught in between a rock and a hard place because your love is going to be tested. Anytime you find yourself in a relationship, a friendship, a bond, or a marriage, your love is going to be tested. And a lot of times we can't get through situations. We can't sit down long enough and really get through situations because we're so bold in a sense to walk away. We have been conditioned to walk away from situations that make us unhappy. Happiness is tangible. Love is tangible. I can wake up tomorrow and be happy, and then the next day I'm sad. I can wake up tomorrow and love you, and then the next day I'm like, okay, I like you a lot, but I don't really know if I love you. You know, these are real life emotional changes that happen on a day-to-day basis. We find so much time in other areas that we lose sight of the purpose of why we're doing what we're doing. We find ourselves really focusing on things that don't matter, you know, and some of those things I'm really going to dive deep in. I'm really going to really stress that the importance of listening to this, because this is something that I think we don't talk about as men, as women. We don't want to address the elephant in the room, and I'm going to address it. We're going to actually dive into some common issues in marriages and relationships that we can't seem to get over. We can't seem to forgive each other. We can't seem to love based on a biblical term. What love is, which is patient, which is kind, which is, you know, it does not boast. It does not hold a record of wrongdoing. So because of that, you know, I've asked tons of people, you know, if you make a mistake one time or 50 times, can you still love a person? And I've gotten so many responses along the lines of, no, if a person cheat on me more than one time, I'm done. I done been in relationships to where I've cheated on people. I've been in relationships where I've been cheated on. I've been in relationships to where I haven't been the most honest or the most responsible. And I've been in relationships where I've done everything right and it still goes wrong, because a lot of times people fall in love with the perception of who you are. People fall in love with the thought of you. They fall in love with the thought of being with you, not the actual relationship. They don't want to work towards anything. They don't want to work towards the end result, the end game. We say, okay, we want this, we want that, and that's not the case. So what I'm gonna talk about first is overstepping boundaries. We feel as though because we're in a relationship, a friendship, a bond, a marriage, that we can overstep our boundaries. Whether that be you make more money than I do, I make more money than you, or whatever the case may be, we feel like we can undermine the other person, or we can talk down, belittle the other person. We feel as though that is something that's cool in a sense, and it's not. That's one thing that you should never do in a relationship, is undermine the person that you're with. You should never overstep your boundaries. Whether that's, you know, say for instance, one of you have kids and the other one don't. Y'all don't have kids together, but the other person has kids. When the parent disciplines his kid Or if you discipline his kids, he shouldn't go against what you're doing. You guys should be on one accord, one team. And that's not just in a marriage, that's period. That's in a relationship, in a bond, in a friendship. It's certain things that you have to align yourself with, because eventually your friendship is going to turn into a bond. Your bond is going to turn to a relationship, and your relationship should, and very well should, turn into a marriage if it's done right, if it's done correctly. The next one I want to touch on is lacking complete communication. Lacking complete communication. And basically this is being able to talk. I know I found myself in a situation where I always said that, yo, I feel like I can't talk to you. I feel like, the only time we talk is during, negative situations or negative times. And what I had to realize is everyone has a different love language. If you're telling your significant other, hey, I feel like I can't talk to you, that's not going to make them feel good about being in a relationship with you or being married to you or anything. It's the way you approach the situation and how you talk. Saying things like, hey, let's talk about this, or let's spend, some time together after work, just discussing the day, and really taking time out to really focus on what's going on, in your relationship, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's indifferent. Take some time out to really learn how to communicate to one another, and you will find yourself in a better predicament, in a better situation than you were before. I would say declining occurrences of intimacy. In my last video, I spoke about different levels of intimacy. A lot of times I've spoken to plenty of people that's been married, and that's like their biggest thing is, their sex life dies down after they've been married. And that's very much true. In a lot of situations, it really does happen like that. And that is part of the intimacy that's very intimate. That's the most intimate place that you can be in, is having sex, and being vulnerable enough to be with someone to have sex is very serious, and you should really take in consideration how this other person feels when you're withholding sex from that person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. Now, I'm not condoning having sex before marriage. I'm not doing that, but let's address the elephant in the room. It happens. I'm not going to speak on practicing abstinency if you're not practicing it. Let's get real. I would definitely suggest practicing abstinence until you find someone that you can really and truly see yourself with long term, because of soul ties and everything else that comes along with it. But you have to use your best judgment with that. Being in a position to where you're vulnerable sexually, physically, mentally, emotionally, are things that you can control, but you have to allow yourself that control. Withdrawing it in a marriage biblically is wrong, and it's a sin. And that's the thing that people are afraid to talk about. They don't really want to talk about sex, but I have a platform, and I choose to address things that other people want to address. Another area is, your wandering focus. I think in my first video, I spoke on it briefly. I touched on some issues, and I said, hey, do things with your partner. And I reiterated that in my last video about intimacy, when you really take time to really do something that's focused towards the relationship and not the person. Build your vision board. Take time out with that person and really write your dreams and goals, your ambitions down, not individually, but together. What do you see yourself as far as the relationship? What do you see the relationship going in the next 2 years, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years? Where do you see it? Being able to stay focused on the goal at hand in that relationship, that friendship, that bond, that marriage. Taking the time out to really analyze certain things is so important. You cannot have a wandering focus when it comes to that, because the same doors that you want closed as far as other people coming in trying to take you away from your significant other is the same doors you're going to leave open every single time if you don't focus on the relationship aspect or the friendship or the bond or the marriage that you have. Another issue that's really something that I feel like a lot of people struggle with is emotional infidelity. Being emotionally detached from a situation, a bond, a marriage, a relationship, a friendship is definitely a no-no. It is a terrible place to be detached from that. Now, being detached from people sometimes can be a no-no, and it could be a detriment to your situation itself, because what happens is you find yourself in a position to where you are emotionally detached. You don't really care about the other's feelings as much. So you say things like, okay, that's fine. You don't really actually put feeling into it because you're scared of getting hurt. You're scared to allow yourself to be vulnerable because hurt people hurt people. You're so used to being hurt and let down that you can't see that you are becoming the emotional person that's detaching from the relationship or the bond or the friendship or the marriage itself. And it becomes very dangerous and very serious. Um, I would say another one would be, money issues, struggling with money. A lot of times we focus on how it was in the old days where the man provides the money per se, and the woman takes care of the house. And that's perfectly fine if you can make ends meet like that, and you can really take the time out to really have that type of relationship, that bond, that marriage, that friendship. But I'm just gonna be honest with you, in 2019, 2020, unless you really have upwards of, you make about 40, $50,000 and up a year, it's gonna be kind of hard for a man to really take care of all responsibilities unless he's working full time, full fledged every day, Sunday through Sunday, to provide for his family. And if you can do that, then hats off to you, But a lot of times we as men have a lot going on our plate, outside of family, outside of kids, outside of work. We have so many things that we want to do and share that it's not enough time in the day to really work Sunday to Sunday, no breaks off, no nothing, because then you'll have the money, but you won't have the happiness. You don't have the time to spend it. You don't have the time to do anything because you're just working. Nobody wants to do that. I believe that it's not a 50-50 type of situation either. I feel like it's 100-100. If we can contribute to something together and build towards something together, then the relationship, the bond, the friendship, and the marriage could have a longer lasting effect than it would if one person is pulling all the load, because he's going to get burnt out or she's going to get burnt out. And then when that happens, the love is tested. Then what do you fall back on at that point? You don't really have anything that you really can fall back on if that's the issue. Um, like I said, just me speaking on my situations, my trials, my tribulations. A lot of times, I would come into situations to where I feel like I lost sight and focus on the end game a lot of times. In previous relationships that I've been in, I feel like we as people forget that we have other jobs, other tasks that we have to do. And that's the part that's really troubling to a lot of us men. I can only speak for a man because I am a man. I can't speak on a woman's behalf, but I feel like we can really, do better in society as a man, not putting ourselves in situations to where we're doing things that we shouldn't be doing. But from the perspective that I see things, I feel like, I'm not always right. I'm not perfect. I definitely need help in other areas. I ask for help in other areas. And a lot of times with cheating, especially. And I discuss this. And this, like I said, it's coming from an open and honest place because I've been there and done that. For me, a lot of times when it comes to cheating, it's not something that is coming from a lustful place. It's a lack of something. Sometimes it's more so of what you're not contributing to the relationship, the bond, the friendship, or the marriage. And it doesn't necessarily mean there's something wrong with the other person, but they could be lacking something. In my case, I was feeling the lack of affection or the lack of love, and then it becomes the rejection and the abandonment that you face early on in childhood for me. And because I faced those things early on in childhood, I always felt like I had to question the people that tell me they love me. I had to question their motives per se. I had to question, their intentions, because I feel like at some point the road was going to be crossed to where the love is going to be tested, and how are you going to react to it? A lot of times the Lord will put you in a situation to where he wants to test how much you want this person or how much you love this person. And a lot of times we fail because we so quick to walk away. You don't want to fight for what you want. You rather fight against it. You rather say, okay, well, I'm going to leave you because I feel like you want to do you want to do your own thing. And you don't even really know how that's affecting you because you haven't dealt with self yourself. A lot of times we think about karma being one-sided. You know, you do something to me, something going to happen to you, that's karma. No, but think about all the other times to where you do something to somebody, and because your karma didn't come the way you want it to, you jump into a relationship with somebody, and then a person do you some type of way, they hurt you, so then you bounce to the next person because you can't stay and work through that situation. You bounce to another person, and when you bounce to that other person, now you dealing with hurt and baggage from your last 2 relationships and his last 2 relationships. So it just keeps going. It's a constant cycle. So then you may have kids, you may not. So then your kids have to go through a hurtful process because they don't know what's going on. They are drugged into a spiritual enlightening warfare that's going on within you because it's part of their DNA at this point, and they're going to inherit your ways because you're not doing what you're supposed to as a man or as a woman at that point. It's a cycle, and we have to break it, you know. And like I said, for me, it was more so of being in a vulnerable space, being able to be heartbroken, but also being able to work on Andy, work on me, work on being a better me. You know, and it gets hard. It gets hard. You know, I said it in all my videos that I ever posted. The 2 that's, you know, up on YouTube, and the other ones that's on my Facebook or my Instagram or whatever the case may be. It's hard when you look at it from this perspective. You know, it's hard being Andy the person versus Andy the mentor, because a lot of times I have to look at it through my mentor eyes and not my personal eyes. A lot of times I hurt. A lot of times I cry. A lot of times I get so frustrated and so angry because I want people to understand, like, I'm a genuine person. I love sincerely, man. It's not a person I ever been with that I didn't go through hell and high water to make sure they were straight. Now, granted, I had messed up moments. I've had mistakes. I've made mistakes. But there is no person that I ever put myself in a predicament with, whether it was a relationship, a friendship, a bond, and I've never been married. But there is nobody that can say that I haven't given 100% of my time. Whether I make a mistake or not, it's going to happen. The question is, where do you fit into the situation? Where do you see yourself as far as your trials, your tribulations, your testimony? Because at some point, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, if I want a marriage, I'm going to have to go through some things. If I want this relationship to really work, I'm going to have to go through some things. Yeah, we're going to take a break or whatever, but our main focus is to make sure that nobody is going to take my woman. Nobody is going to take my man, and I'm going to make sure I'm doing everything in my power to mend whatever is broken so we can get married and move on. Because again, you know, 2 is always better than 1. You say, hey, I love being single. I love doing me. Hey, it's been a hot girl summer. Hey, check this out. It's a cold, cuddle winter. I tell you that. You got to get on board and get on ball, man. Nobody really wants to be single. And then the ones that saying, oh, I don't mind being single, I don't do, that's because you hurt and you haven't dealt with you yet. If you deal with you, then you would know that if you call yourself a Christian, love is in the Bible. Everyone deserves love. At the end of the day, we were all created for somebody. So you sitting here saying, oh, well, I love being single. I want to be single for the rest of my life. Man, listen, bro. Listen, sis. You really need to deal with the hurt that you got going on before you hurt somebody else. Because at the end of the day, Eve was created for Adam. So if Eve was created for Adam, that means it's somebody created for you. You wasn't put here just to be by yourself. So stop that. Stop acting like it's all about you. Because a lot of times the Lord will remove people so you can work on you. And the problem is we so stubborn and ignorant that we don't take the time to do that. We need to live a balanced life. And a lot of y'all don't even know what that is. Be balanced. Live balanced. I got something I want you to do. I got something I really want y'all out there to do. Whether it's a friendship, whether it's a bond, whether it's a marriage. Take 15 minutes, just 15 minutes every single day. Don't skip a day, every single day. Whether it's when you get off work, whether it's after church, Whether it's before you go play ball, go to the weight room, whether it's before you go to the studio to make your music, whether it's before you sit down and write, before you cook that hot meal, before you do that, take 15 minutes of your time and you get with your significant other, your partner, whatever it is you want to call each other, and y'all talk. Y'all really take the time out to speak to each other. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's indifferent, nobody is perfect. Stop holding on to things that can't be changed. You can't change the past. And what I mean by the past is anything that happened before this very second is the past. So whether it happened 5 minutes ago, 5 hours ago, 5 days ago, 5 months ago, 5 years ago, you gotta learn how to forgive and forget. You gotta learn how to let go and move on. I hate when people say, oh, well, I forgive you, but I'm not gonna forget. No, you can't do that. You have to learn how to forgive and forget if you want to maintain a stable relationship, a stable bond, a stable friendship, or a stable relationship. Because I'm going to tell you now, listen, it's a crazy society. It's a shortage of good people, not just good men, but good women. It's a shortage of them. So if you got something real that's worth holding on to, you better hold on to it. Because I'm telling you, man, you'll look up and your girl will be gone. Somebody will snatch her up. Or your dude will be gone, man. It's tons, and I'm gonna be real. I'm gonna even say this: it's tons of women out here, and it's tons of men out here, but it's way more women than it is men because men die and go to jail every single day. So take 15 minutes every single day to sit down. No cell phones, no kids, no mama, no daddy. You and your significant other take 15 minutes and really sit down and talk to one another. Strengthen your communication, and I promise you, your love will grow. And I promise you, will spend more time focusing on how you can help the relationship instead of trying to help the person. Because you can't change the person, but you can change your relationship. You can change your bond. You can change your marriage. You can change your friendship. Spend time doing that, and I promise you, everything will be all right.